You work with many students who have a language other than English as their primary language.
Yes, I do.
Do those students experience academic difficulties? If so, is it due to their disability or to a lack of English skills?
Yes, they experience academic difficulties. I think it needs to be individualized to the child. It needs to be taken into account to separate language acquisition from disability. Ethically and by state or federal law, we have to untangle it.
Do you think tests used to determine special education eligibility are unfairly biased against ELLs, or do they provide valuable information to make educational decisions?
The right tests provide, but not all. It's about having right practitioners selecting the instruments, testing the students properly, and then analyzing the results appropriately.
One of the things that was a common topic in the national conversations was the issue of assessment and accountability. In terms of assessments, the issue of the validity of using a test in English to measure the knowledge of students that don't speak English. The issue of the accommodations with assessments, whether they're valid accommodations or not, that was a pretty constant through all the 6 conversations that we had. It's an area that has been addressed in the sense that the department issued 2 Race to the Top competitive grants to develop the next generation of assessments, and they are required to address the validity of using that new test with English language learners. And as a matter of fact, we had a whole day of technical assistance that brought experts in the field of English language development to the consortia to address how to go about doing that. They're required to include English learners in their pilot testing, in the design of their items, and the issue of accountability is very controversial, and we don't have a real consensus agreement on whether English learners should be included or shouldn't they wait until 3 years before they're tested, or, you know, people have different opinions about that. The experiment that we are now going through is the flexibility package. Okay, one size doesn't fit all. So let's see if we have out in the field some ideas of how to improve the accountability, making sure that it's a meaningful accountability and that it does not mask the performance of the subgroups. So we're waiting to see what the next possible system of accountability. And I think everybody's sort of struggling in that area. How do you balance holding everybody accountable without putting all these expectations that are not viable expectations for certain subgroups, students with disabilities and English learners. So again, it's a very exciting time because everybody's now saying, okay, let's put our heads together, let's see how we can best do this. And we are not saying, oh, we have the answer. Let's see if some of the states have better answers.
I think the assessments will drive a lot. I think that the implementation of the assessments is going to be messy because they're on a very aggressive time frame trying to do a lot, and that some of the parts of the assessment that are the most important, such as formative assessment, are the slowest moving at the moment. So it's really the parts of the assessments that will be implemented initially will be the ones that look more traditional. So even the assessments themselves are going to kind of lag in terms of delivering on the promise of the Common Core. And so the current assessments that we have that accompany the implementation of the Common Core is really just a rough draft of where we need to be. And I hope in the process of doing that we don't lose sight of the fact that where knowledge gets built is through the meaningful, rich conversations that happen between students, right? And that's shifting the role of teachers as we go along. But education is a very slow-moving enterprise.
Do you work with many students who have a language other than English as their primary language?
Yes, about 13 students.
Do those students experience academic difficulties? If so, do you think it is due to a disability or to a lack of English skills?
Yeah, they do experience academic difficulties, and I think it is due to a lack of English skills.
Do you think tests used to determine special education eligibility are unfairly biased against ELLs or provide valuable information to make educational decisions?
Oh, wow. This is a tough question. It's not fair for ELLs. The tests are outdated and they need to be changed.
So do you work with many students who have a language other than English as their primary language, or have you in the past?
I've had a handful of them, but not exclusively with them.
Okay. Do those students you've worked with experience academic difficulties, and do you think it is due to their disability or to the lack of English skills?
Actually, I had one student who was in third grade who was a second language learner, but they didn't have support for that. So I don't know to what extent. And I suspected he had a learning disability. And so I tried to get the special ed, the director of special ed for the district to automatically attribute it to his language difficulties.
Okay, and do you think tests used to determine special education eligibility are unfairly biased against ELLs or provide valuable information to make educational decisions?
I haven't looked at them very closely. It's usually that someone else has done the testing, so I can't speak to that, but I suspect that since a lot of other tests that we use are biased, that I would think that might be the case.